Hey, ladies and gentlemen, please come inside. If you're a Kohen, you can stay outside the wall just outside. Otherwise, please come in. We're going to begin now. Hey, where's the... That's one. It just... If you'd like to follow along, there's some books. We begin on page number 1. Thank you for coming out here today to pay our last respects to Mr. Michael Kessel, Michal David Ben Leib. We begin on page number 1 with the Tzadok Hadin. I like to call the pallbearers. Please go to the Chaver Kadisha, to the van. Eitan, Kessel, Herman Lifshitz.
Sorry, wrong side.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Sorry.
Maybe Sam instead of me.
No. The wrong side of the page.
Okay, sorry. I'll start again. Stephen Paul, Archie Baskin, Alan Denker, Paul Salkiner, Herman Lifshitz, Seymour Abrams, Neville Kosviner, and Sam Levy. Please go with the Chaver Kadisha.
You can use it.
If you have a seat, you can take the seat. We're going to do a few prayers and then a few eulogies. We begin on page number 1 with the Tzadok Hadin. We acknowledge the judgment of the Almighty as the ultimate judge, even at the most difficult times. Hatzor tamim pralai kichol derachav mishpat el emunah ve'navel tzadik v'yasharu. Hatzor tamim b'chol payam yamar la matifal. Hashalit b'matav ma'amei mismachayim harishal v'yal. Hatzor tamim b'chol maseh. Miyamar la mataseh. Haimer v'isech esem tinam la nutaseh. Uv'yaschosen ekad kesach shiva v'aseh. Tzadik b'chol derachav. Hatzor tamim. Eraf apayim malei rachamim, chamol navachus na'avas vanim, ki l'cha adon asichas barachamim. Tzadik atzad and alamed yatcha pigdan kol ruchais, chalila l'cha zechernenu limchais, v'yudnai enecha l'barachamim aleinu v'chukais, ki l'cha adon arachamim v'aslichais. Adam ben shana yiyeh, ayarav shanim yechiyeh, Ma Yisrael la kalei haya yiyeh. Baruch dayan emes, me'emes mechaya, baruch hu kemes dinai. U'mishayteit hakol be'enai, mishalem la'adam ches b'enai v'dinai. V'hakol ismai hadaya yitenu, yudayinu ad nakitetik mishpatecha. Titzdak b'davrecha v'tizke b'shavtecha. V'ein laharachar midad shavtecha. Tzadik atadonai v'yashar mishpatecha. Dayan emes, shefet tzedek v'emes. Baruch dayan emes, shekol mishpatav tzedek v'emes. Nefesh kol chai b'yadacha. Tzedek mala yimcha v'yadecha. Rachem al paitas on yadecha. V'tamela malach eref yadecha. Gadol esav rav aliyah. Asher necha pikuchais lal kol darchei v'nei adam. L'seis lish kidracha v'kifri malalav agid ki asher Adonai. Shuri v'lai avlasabai. Adonai nasan v'adonai lakach. Yishem v'adonai mevarach. V'rach mechap rabban v'lai ashkez. V'yavlash v'abai v'lai yakolcha masai. The Lord has given, the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. And he, being merciful, forgives iniquity and does not destroy. Many a time he turns away his anger and does not stir up his wrath. As for man, his days are as grass, as the flower of the field, so he flourishes. For the wind passes over it, and it is gone, and the place thereof shall know it no more. But the loving kindness of the Lord is from everlasting to everlasting upon them that fear him, and his righteousness unto his children's children. And the way of righteousness is life, and in the pathway thereof there is no death. And the dust returns to the earth as it was, but the spirit returns unto God who gave it. Whom do I have in heaven but you? And there's none upon the earth that I desire besides you. My flesh and my heart fails, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever. How precious is your loving kindness, O God, and the children of men take refuge under the shadow of your wings. For with you is a fountain of life. In your light do we see light. Mi ale b'Adonai mi yakom gimkaim kachai niki chapayim b'var levav asher lo yinasel ashav nafshi v'lo nifra l'mirma yisav racham esav naitzedakam elihei yishai seif davar kol nishmas elihim yira bes mitzvah sof shamar kizek al adam hayoim katsev amlach l'meruva v'apar lematzelim v'asachar harbeyu b'alabay sechek lo yalach amlach l'igmar lo yater ben charin li batal mimena nemanu b'amlach shisham l'choska pulasachah who may ascend to the mountain of the Lord, and who may stand in his place of sanctity? One who has clean hands and a pure heart, who has not sworn in vain by my soul and has not sworn deceitfully. He will receive a blessing from God and just kindness from the God of his salvation. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. The day is short, the task is abundant. The laborers are lazy, the wage is great, and the master of the house is insistent. You are not required to complete the task, yet you are not free to withdraw from it. If you have studied much Torah, they will give you great reward, and your employer can be relied upon to pay you the wages of your labor. But be aware that the reward of the righteous will be given in the world to come. Friends, thank you again for coming out here today. We'd like to ask some of the family members, Seymour, to come say a few words. Ask the president. Seymour, please come forward.
Rabbi and friends, just looking at all of you here. First of all, I speak on behalf of the Amonis Hebrew congregation, and I represent the community of Amonis. Just looking at everybody here, I'm actually ill-equipped to address you. My opinion. All of you knew Mike far better than I knew Mike. I've only known Mike my first acquaintance with Mike was I suppose as a youngster sitting on the stands at Newlands. When you seen posts of one or two incidents that happened during his referees encounters, and one of the couple of the stories that I enjoyed most about Mike is when he was totally relaxed and liked to tell stories about Moff Mayberg and Frick de Peer and how he interacted with them. Those of you that have grey hair must remember those names. The youngsters of today don't even know who those Springboks were. But to get down to the business of today, I find this task incredibly difficult. And I want to continue along the theme when I spoke in Shul on Friday night. when I described Mike as a fatherly figure here in Amonis for us as a Jewish community. And that's where my interaction with Mike started, when Mike took over the chairmanship of the committee and running the shul in Amonis. It's no secret that the shul and this community went through tough times when this new shul was built. But Mike was the one that pulled it all together. And I had great satisfaction of serving on the committee with Mike and helping him, as did so many of us here. So to us, he was a father. He was a leader. We could go to him in times of stress, in times of need, and almost confess to him what our problems were. And he would listen, and he would never tell you what to do. He would ask you what he thought the solutions were. And he would say, well, go ahead and then do it. And when I took over from him as the chairman of the committee, which is never in my wildest dreams did I envisage that role for myself, but I was asked to take on that duty. It's one of those duties, once you've got it, you can't get rid of it, but that's another story. And I went to Mike and I sat one-on-one with him, and I said, if I am to take on this duty, I would like to do this, this, and this. What do you think? And he said, go ahead and do it. You'll have my support all the way. And even after he lost his sight and could no longer see, obviously, he still came to the committee meetings. And it was a tower of strength for us, supported us. And to the Kessel family, just wanted to say to you, as I said on Friday night, it was a privilege to have the Kessels amongst us for the years that they retired in Amonis. I don't think they envisaged that role for Mike when he came here, but he took it upon himself and was a great leader amongst us. We're a small community, but we stand together. And I'm proud to be able to tell you that we're a growing community in South Africa. One of the few Jewish communities in South Africa that is actually growing. People are coming to Amonis. So, on behalf of everybody in Amonis, we wish you strength, and we are for you. We'll support you. We wish you long life. Golder. One other thing I want. Sorry. As a community, we wanted to honor Mike. Sorry, I slipped up, Brian. Excuse me for a minute. Our shul facilities down there, we have a wonderful hall, and the committee decided they wanted to honor Mike, and we would name the facility after him. Now, and normally it's always after somebody has passed away, but we decided we wanted to honor Mike during his lifetime. Mike serves on the committee. How do you go about this? And so we we bit the bullet and we said to Mike, this is what the committee has decided. This is what we're going to do. This is what we want to do. And Mike, in his inimitable fashion, said, it wasn't about me. It was about other people that were helping me. And we said, sorry, Mike, this is what the committee has decided. You were the one that led us through the storm. He was very unhappy about it. He kept saying other people were involved, other people helped. But he was the leader, he was the captain of the ship. He took us through that storm. And on Tuesday, I was involved at the signage company, getting the design and the signage done to put up in the shul. We were having a dinner on the 22nd of December, on Friday night Shabbat. The dinner will still happen. The signage will still go up, and we will name the hall in honor of Mike.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mike Kessel, Principal and Director of Education of Richard School from 1977 until 1985. And even though Mike did the most incredible job there, that's not what defined him. That's not which made him stand out above the crowd. That contribution during those years was just a moment in time during which many had the privilege to get to know him as I did. And as no doubt many of you did. I can't speak with much authority about Mike and family's time in Durban at Carmel School or of his time in the United States. But that too didn't define him. I can't with any confidence talk about Mike, the family man. Although over the years, during our chats, his love and pride for Alison, Shlomo, and Johnny became very clear to me. But that too didn't define him. Mike wouldn't have wanted anybody to speak here today, just in case anybody might dare to sing his praises. As Seymour pointed out, he was a private, humble man who would. He was a humble, particularly unique man. His humility knew no boundaries. As Seymour pointed out, the shul's naming the hall in his honor, and his involvement and role in turning around the community, as Seymour pointed out, was critical. And now the hall being named, which would have been named in his honor, is now, in a sense, being named in his memory. But his role in the Monas and in the Monas Hebrew congregation also didn't define him. Mike made a selfless and sincere contribution. He always made a selfless and sincere contribution to growing everybody around him for thanks or recognition. That was Mike Kessel. It wasn't always that he didn't want it or he felt uncomfortable with it. He just had no need for it. Mike was a brilliant educator, a pioneering educator, an educator who made a material contribution to Jewish and secular education, and in fact, did a lot of work in bringing those two together, particularly in the United States. His academic prowess in the educational realm is obvious and well known. But again, it's not that which defined him. Johnny, in a tribute to his dad, said it perfectly. What you said, Johnny, is that he will be missed by the thousands of people whose lives he touched over the years as an educator, mentor, and friend. It is this that defined him. When you take all that Mike contributed. He became a whole person, and it brought together all those bits that made up the unique person that he was. It was never the office of the principal. It wasn't the love. It wasn't the humility. It wasn't the compassion, the wisdom, and all that Mike was. It was all of them together. And in fact, I and Alison and the family may know the story. I'm living proof of this because I was a particularly poor scholar at Herzliya. And Mike was probably the only person in the Western Cape who had any belief in me. It's a true story. And no maths teacher at Herzliya prepared to teach me maths, but Mike taught me maths. He took me into his office as he did with others, and he taught me maths with humility and with compassion and with care. And but for Mike, I don't like to admit it, but for Mike, I probably wouldn't have got a matric pass at school or anywhere else. He made a real contribution, and I was a beneficiary of all those strengths that he had. And I'll always be grateful for that. He never didn't remember us, all of us. He knew all our names. He knew our parents and their names. He knew our children and their names. And he never failed to ask us about them. And when he did, he named them. Mike was also a multi-talented sportsman, a wonderful golfer, and maybe not known to everybody, a much sought-after golf teacher. Again, obviously, probably in this case, his only failure. He tried to teach me, it didn't go so well. So even in the sporting arena, Mike's passion for education carried through the same theme. His passion for rugby, which carried with it a celebrity status, just because of a few disputed inches. I doesn't ask me to say just a few words. She said just a few words. And I'm going to honor that because I've already said more than Mike would have wanted me to say. But let me say this. We've lost a giant. We should be under no illusion. The loss of Mike Kessel is material to this community in the Manus and to the greater Jewish community of Cape Town. His legacy and his memory will forever remain etched in our hearts and minds. His unwavering dedication and commitment to us all and the impact he had on mine and countless other lives will continue to inspire us and to inspire generations to come. May his dear soul rest in peace.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. First, I'd like to say thank you to everybody here. I'd like to say a specific thank you to the Hermanus Hebrew congregation for being such support and helping us through everything we needed. I practically grew up here, been coming every year from when I was about 12 years old. And this has become my safe space. Every time we come here, this is where I come once a year to think about everything and take a little minute from life. And me and my sisters, the family, we wrote some words. When we were kids, we felt like Grandpa was the most famous person in the world. In Cape Town, you just said, do you know, you happen to know my granddad, Michael Kessel? And you get that immediate smile and a flood of fond memories. Every time he came to Israel, people drove from across the country to see him. They couldn't stop themselves. 2 hours, 3 hours, nobody cared, just as long as he's there. As we grew up, we understood how much our grandpa was special. He was a real mentor, an educator, someone who meant so much to every life he touched. Someone who cared about people, not just his family, but everybody he's ever met. But to us, he was just Grandpa, who'd take us shopping and walk around calmly with a newspaper in his back pocket and his hands behind his back, waiting for us to finish ogling all the toys. He'd yell at us, look, in that Anglo accent, watch us dissolve into giggles. Grandpa, every time we'd visit, would borrow from the neighbors all the little things that would make us feel at home. Icicle, Mickey Mouse shaped sleeping bags, a Hebrew tape cassettes with kids' songs on them. For the past few years, Grandpa lost his vision, but still, he was the most acknowledgeable person he knew. He gave us great advice, told us the best grandpa jokes. When we were young, he had a Rolodex filled with jokes for every occasion. But in the past few years, he kept every single one of those jokes filed right there in his mind, ready to lighten the mood. Grandpa, your humor and inner peace had such a big impact on who we are today, on our family. We're going to miss you so much. Thank you for being the best grandpa in the world.
Thanks everybody for bearing with us. Good thing you cut this to short, Rabbi. There's a place to put the microphone. So before I say my own a few words, just a brief few words from Dad's brother, Frank, and his wife, Marion, who live in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and it was just too difficult and too far for them to get here. Sad not to be with you physically. We, Marion and I, are there in deep, heartfelt spirit with all of you, but of course, especially with and for Alison, Sean, and Johnny. And the thought and feeling we want to share is both simple and significant, which is that beloved Mike made our lives better and richer in all sorts of ways, and he did so. Via his profoundly plain and oh so rare qualities, his lived everyday values that you know and that we will treasure forever. His putting people at ease humor, Yanni, his sometimes admittedly corny jokes and storytelling humor. His natural unaffected humility about all his splendid gifts, interpersonal, sporting and otherwise. His quiet courage in the face of more than a few severe hardships, some but not all known to others, and of course, up to the physical end. And perhaps most of all, his ever-patient, empathetic support of all of us as family, sure, but also dozens, nay hundreds of people, younger and older, close friends and semi-strangers and their families, empathetic support in uncountable larger and smaller ways, which means we join all of them and you in offering prayerful thanks and saying, may all the spirits guide you, dearest beloved, in flying free and bright and clear. And finally, yes, it's true, in ways beyond any conceivable words, I will miss sharing life stories, both joyful and not, with my brother. Thank you, Frank. So thank you all for being with us today. Some of you drove for many hours, and the traffic on Sunday is pretty heavy. Thank you for coming to be my husband, dad, grandfather, great-grandfather, provincial rugby ref, and former president, not of the country, although I would assume that if he had been running the country, it would look a little better than it is, but of the shul. Also, a friend and mentor, Mike Kessel, who physically left us, but in spirit, lives on in anybody whose life he touched in almost 88 years. There's no doubt that if Dad was standing here delivering his own eulogy, it would be short, but it would be a lot more witty, eloquent, and wise. First, he would probably tell you the same joke he told you the week before and the week before that, but with so much pain that you'd laugh again at the punchline as if hearing it for the first time. Then he would make some really appropriate remarks in his very deliberate style, because every little speech had to be perfect, like an end-of-year prize-giving address to the whole school. When he spoke, he never left anybody out. In fact, if he was here, he would have something perfect to say to every single one of us. Now, not forget to ask us each about our children, grandchildren, careers, and sporting achievements, and then reminisce about events decades ago, remembering everybody and every detail. As a child, walking down with Dad down the Sea Point beachfront was a nightmare. People would stop him every 200 yards. It was either hello, Mike, or hello, Mr. Kessel, and he would chat away with each person as if he was the only other person in the world. I often thought that he was winging it. Maybe he didn't really remember. But over the years, I learned, and it was clear that he wasn't. And his memory for people was simply outstanding. So one day, after he went blind, we were walking down the beachfront when he was accosted in a positive way, very enthusiastically, by a very boisterous ex-Herclean who, not knowing that about Dad's loss of his eyesight, neglected to introduce himself. Dad, the ultimate headmaster, without losing a beat or a step, looked at him and said, I've lost my eyesight and I can't see you, but if you bend down, I'll know who you are. Actually, the truth is that Dad would be horrified, as Brian said, horrified that we're all here and talking about him. He would immediately turn the conversation around and ask something about us or discuss the most recent PGA golf tournament. A number of years ago, Dad asked me where I wanted him to be buried, here or in Pinelands. Where would it be more convenient for me for him to be buried? So, of course, I told him Hermanus. Just look at this beautiful location and the weather that we've been blessed with today. But the truth is, the real reason I chose Hermanus was because of the wonderful congregation. When Mom and Dad moved back from America, they chose Hermanus for many reasons. But if I'm allowed to say it, I'm not sure the shul was at the top of the list. I must admit that when Dad became president of the shul, no one was more astonished than him himself. But when Eitan and I started coming to daven here on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur 12 years ago, I understood why. This is the most beautiful, supportive community anybody could wish for. And I want to thank you all from the bottom of our hearts for being my folks' second family. Mom and Dad have always encouraged my choice to live in Israel, and I'm assuming Johnny's choice to live in San Diego. But while living so far away is hard, having this congregation and so many lovely friends helps us to sleep better, easy at night. Seymour, who succeeded Dad as president, you say chairman, I don't know, but I think you're the president, spoke heartfully on Friday night and called him the father of the shul, as he said today. Thank you, Seymour. And I should really mention and could mention every single member of the community, but the day is short and Dad probably has a tea time at the big golf course in the sky anyway, so I won't. I must, however, with your permission, thank two very special friends that Dad and Mom have, Shirley and Herman, who were there for Mom and Dad, and Mom and especially Dad, for so many years. Dad accepted his blindness and other challenges in an unbelievable, noble, and gracious way. Unbelievably noble and gracious way. There was no bitterness, no recriminations, and no complaining. If there was any regret on his part, it was because of the way it created hardship and inconvenienced Mom. Mom, this wouldn't have been possible without your endless love and care. Couldn't have done it without you. You showed him so much respect and dignity. There's no doubt in my mind that you could have done the banking and all the admin without him. You could have done it yourself, but you always asked him and consulted with Dad, knowing how important it was to him to be involved. He was always dressed to perfection with matching clothes. And I admit, I often thought, what does that matter? He can't see it anyway. But you showed him so much respect. We know how much you loved him, and he loved you. And I'm sure I speak for Johnny and Karina, definitely for Rachel and myself, your beloved grandkids and great-grandkids, to whom you are the most wonderful grandparents. Michal, Elisheva, Ayelet, Eitan, Avital, Ido, and Oz. When I say how much we love you and all you did for Dad, we will all miss him so much, but we'll also be here for you. Dad's last days were spent listening to music. And even on Thursday afternoon, literally hours before he passed away, we were listening to comedy on YouTube. He was having a better day, and he was listening to his favorite scene, Peter Sellers from the Pink Panther. Hey, do you have a license for your Mickey? And he burst out laughing. And then when Inspector Clouseau turned to the beggar and said, "Are you blind?" Dad absolutely folded in laughter. We've been so overwhelmed by the outpouring of messages from so many hundreds of family members and friends, and especially Dad's students. In the last few weeks that Dad was in hospital, there were days when he was quite delirious and was speaking to people that were not actually there. All of those people were ex-students with whom he had such deep and wonderful relationships. So, Dad, whenever I saw you in the morning or if I phoned, the first thing you asked me was, "Did you sleep?" So, Dad, we're giving you permission now to sleep for as long as you need. Mom won't come in the morning and say, "Why are you sleeping so long?" Get out of bed. We're letting you sleep and relax because you gave us 87 and a half years of your life, and we value that very much. On Dad's, during last week, we one day had a really wonderful lucid day, and we phoned Johnny and Frank and my grandkids, and we phoned around and to a couple of his very good friends, and particularly to a wonderful friend who's with us today, one of Dad's long-lasting friends, 70 years, Alan Danker. Put up your hand, Alan, please. Alan Danker. And they could hardly talk to each other because they were choking up with emotion at speaking to each other. And Dad said to Alan, because he'd been hearing Afrikaans from the nurses, and so he started speaking a lot of Afrikaans. He said, "Alan," he said, "Ek lewe nog." Well, Dad, you know what? Maybe you're not physically with us and you don't live anymore, but all the messages, all the posts, all the phone calls, jy lewe nog. Your legacy lives on and will always live on in the hearts and souls of so many people. You hated goodbyes. Every time we left, we obviously thought maybe this was the last time, and you hardly were prepared to say goodbye to us. So, Dad, tot ziens, lehitraut, and we'll see you sometime again. Nicht noch tot, so Robert.
No. No. Oh, yes.
You want to speak now?
Sorry, I actually wrote this on a pen and it's on my phone.
Yeah, John.
See it.
So, Michael.
Not sure I'm able to see it. Just 1 second, guys. Good afternoon, everybody. I stand here before you today not only as a son, but as a representative of a community that has deeply touched by the passing of a truly exceptional man. My father, Michael. For those who knew him personally, he was a beacon of light, a pillar of strength, a source of unwavering support. His kindness and compassion and wisdom touched the lives of countless individuals, leaving an indelible mark on their hearts. As a headmaster, he transformed his schools into a haven of learning where students were not merely taught, but nurtured, inspired, and led with the ultimate authority as a leader. His unwavering belief in their potential empowered them to reach for the stars, shaping them into leaders and change makers of tomorrow.
For 50 years, he has shaped the tomorrows of communities that now span the world. Beyond the school gates, he was a mentor, a confidant, a father, a friend. He always had a listening ear, a warm embrace, and a sage of advice to offer. His door was always open, both physically and metaphorically, and his heart was even wider and his mind a treasure trove. To my father, education was not merely a profession, but a calling. He saw the inherent potential in every child, regardless of their background, abilities, or circumstances, and he dedicated his life to unlocking that potential. He believed that education was the key to a brighter future, not just for individuals, but for society as a whole. He instilled in us the importance of critical thinking, empathy, social responsibility, and the values that have guided us throughout our lives, myself included. His impact extended far beyond the classroom. He is committed to justice, and an unwavering belief in the power of human connection inspired countless others to follow in his footsteps. He's also a man of many passions, and rugby was one of them, as you heard from before. He was an avid fan, a referee, and a supporter of the game, and he instilled in me the love for the game that stayed with me throughout my life. I'm convinced that if it wasn't for the lack of a Bruderborn membership, he probably would have been the most prolific Test rugby referee of the 70s and 80s. I still remember the countless hours we spent together on the rugby field, the cricket nets, the tennis court, him coaching me, teaching me the fundamentals of the game, and encouraged me never to give up. The opportunities he gave me to ball boy for multiple Test matches, including the iconic 1976 All Black Springboks Test in Kings Park. He was always there to cheer me on, no matter how big or small the game was. He would agree when I would say, "Hey, Dad, did you see Harry Hammershai's try that the other day? I was running, screaming behind him. I think that's why he scored." And when I spun the ball to Paul Bavel, and he patted me on the head and he said, "With that pass, you'll be a Springbok one day," he agreed with me. Or he had consoled me when SABC captured me scratching my bum on live TV. One of the most proudest moments was when I was made the captain of Hertzler first team when I was in Standard 9. I knew how much it meant to him, and I was determined to make him proud. And when I was subsequently selected for Hamilton's under-21 A team, he was over the moon. That type of support followed behind me all my life, and I can always reliably take that to the bank. My father was a great supporter of my obsession with surfing, which he bought me my first surfboard at age 6 from another one of his students, world champion Sean Thompson. And trust me, his students are literally everywhere. Even though he knew it was a distraction from my studies and practically everything else, only a surfer knows the feeling, he never discouraged me. He knew how much I loved it, and he always encouraged me to follow my instincts. We had our conflicts at times, for sure, as all fathers and sons do, but I always knew that his love for me was unwavering, and he was never vindictive, and he always tried to see things from my perspective, even though I resisted seeing things from his. My father was a man of great humor and always a great knack for making people laugh. One of the clear memories of him was when he was giving a speech at school function. He was talking about the importance of teamwork, and he said, "It's like a rugby team. Everybody has a role to play." Then he paused and looked directly at me, and I was sitting on the side, and he said, "But if you're a scrum half, you better start learning how to pass the ball." So the whole crowd erupted in laughter, and my father just smiled and carried on with his speech. Lesson learned. Life is not only about your own personal achievements, but what contribution you make to the betterment of the collective. I really could go on and on. My pops, my dad, my old man was a true legend and will be missed by many people. I'm so grateful for the time I had with him, and I'll cherish his memory forever. May your memory of him be blessed.
Thank you all. We ask the pallbearers and the Chevra Kadisha to please take up their positions. We're gonna follow behind. Acharina Elena Malchala Mashiach Eschem Badin, Vizan Chokol Eschem Badin, Vemis Eschem Badin, Yedem Isparkolchem Badin, Vasilachazil Chayeschem Badin, Baruch Acharina Mechayeh Mesim, Atzigi Barlan Banaim Chamis Matur Avlashia, Chalkachayim Mechas Mechayim Mesim Rachmim Rabim, Samech Navlim Rapichalim Matir Asurim, Kamanasa Sheni Afar, Vichamarach Bagavras, Midamalach Melech Memis Mechayim Mesmech Yeshua, Benemen Atarach Yas Mesim. Yashem Besetzer El Yom Tzal Shaddai Yisleinan. Amar Ladonai Masi Misadasi Eli Hayef Tachba. Ki Yu Yatzach Mipaka Kashmida Rabais. Be'avras Esach Lach Betachas Knafa Ptichsa. Tinev V'Sacher Amitai. Laisir Mipaka Laila Mechet Shiof Yamam. Idever Barfo Yarach Miketev Yashin Tzoroyim. Yipal Mitzchel Efer Vaba Minachel Lechel Yigash. Rak Benachas Abit L'Shul Mesrushaim Tira. Yated my Masil Yon Samta Menecha. Laisune Lecha Rav Nega Lekra Balacha. Imalacha Visav Lakashmacha Bachol Rakacha. Akapayim Visayucha. Pentina Bevan Raglacha. Afraka Bafesan Tirdar. Timaski Visanin. TV Chashak Vafateas like Berk Yadashmi. Ukraini Vene Menachim Besarach Seva Habdeu. Archim must be a vare, Bishuasi. Archim must be a vare, you Bishuasi.
Somebody that's young. What do you need? Get them and get them ready to go. Yeah. Give them just a drop focus. I'm in the ground. Let's go to yeah. The other one's
Fisherman.
Not on penguins either.
must be the same type of sand.
Running at 40 in a car.
Put it on the wood. Put it on the wood. Put it on the wood and slide.
It's fine.
On the wood.
Slide. That's right. That's fine also. If I can come in here. Yeah. Oh, this one, please. Okay, but you just this. Yeah. That's it. Hold it on the other side.
It's on your room for one first.
We're gonna do it like when you get that before time. What? Yeah, it's awesome. Is
Michael, are you gonna leave these boards here? Or you can take them away.
I think we can try the sand.
Okay.
Maybe not all the way, just.
Okay, no problem.
Leave it.
Sorry, man. The wine. Careful.
Don't worry.
There we go. Al-Makam Yavo B'Shalom may come to his final resting place in peace. Ask the family to please come forward.
Yeah. Hand up, Sam. Thank you.
I think you need a hand with a spade.
Okay.
Will you hold a hand with a spade? Jamie.
Yeah. Goodbye.
Sean. Ask the pallbearers to please come forward. The error of he must be mit net Kapila Marab Tipasafala Sedikim Mashakasub. Marab Tipashafanto Riasa, Alta Bakanaga, Bene Adam. Anad and I reference real life Macabre Sakosam, Shalim the Kum Lavelim. Asking Biam Simbiam Ablam, we got name of the criminal base on Kantov, Morukim. Then believe I'm Rastav of Kabalev of Shalem, with Riakosom Shalom, Amen. Yesha Martin Nakameno, Kinanokin Akampem. Obishlam, Tinakamu, Layaveda, Chimshak, Rekli Yasef, Yamaya Laklam, Somi, Mayavlek, Vilamavis, and Netza, Omakar and Elim Dima, Yotopanim, the Kapasama, Yasir Makars, Kedonai, Dive. Page.
ויתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, תלמה, יברח, חירותי, וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון ובימיכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב, ואמרו אמן. שני על מיה, יתברך וישתבח, ויתפעל ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלה, שמי לקודשה ולכו, לילה מכל ברכתה ושירתה, תלוש בחטא ונחמתה, דמירן ועלמה, ואמרו אמן. זהו שלמה רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו, על כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו, ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן.
אל מלא רחמים, שוכן בם רמים, המסי מנוחה נכונות, הקץ כנפי השכינה, ומל קדוש ומתרום כזר רקיע, מעשירים את נשמס, רב מיכל דוד בן רב לייב, שלח לעולמי, בגן עדן תהיה מנוחה עשה, לכן בעל הרחמים יסרי, בספר כנפיו לעולמים, ויצרה בצרכיים, את נשמסי, אדוני נחל עשי, וינוח משכבי ושלום, ונאמר אמן. The bottom of page 12, we'll say together in English, Psalm 23, a psalm of David. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest the table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely happiness and long kindness shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. גדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, ועלמה לברך חירותי ואמליך מלכותי בחייכון ובימיכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב, ואמרו אמן. שמי רבה יתברך וישתבח ויתפעל ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלה על שמי לקודשה ברכו, לילה מכל ברכתה ושירתה, דוש בחדה ונחמתה, אמירן ועלמה ואמרו אמן. שלמה רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. אמן. Where's the prayers?
At the synagogue.
What time?
It's 6:45.
Every night this week?
Every night. And in the morning.
The prayers will be this week, 8 a.m. and 6:45 in the shul. This concludes the prayers, the service. Thank you all for coming here. Special thank you to the Chevra Kadisha for going way out of their way. I know the difficulties that they have with the job that they have. And thank you all for being here.
Yeah, she is in the left.
Okay. Okay, please can we make two parallel lines? The custom is that the family walks between the two lines of the congregation. There's control and Shiva, the family Shiva. As well, the Shiva take a Shiva call now as well. They have my phone. Now, and
Yeah.